Welcome and good morning to our podcast. We are very fortunate today to have one of my favorite people. I consider Bernie a friend as well as a great real estate agent, and we've done a lot of stuff together over the years. And Bernie Gallerani is from Nashville, Tennessee. And one of the first questions, Bernie, that I wrote down was, you were a RE/MAX agent for many, many years, and you gave up the franchise idea. Tell us about that transition.
Yeah, I was a RE/MAX agent for 18 years, and I think it was a great brand to start off with. And I feel I wouldn't probably have wanted to do it any other way than the way I probably did it. But what was a little bit of rub for me personally was that I was paying them about $200,000 a year to do business with their company. Them and my group were
Yes.
between fees and commission structures that they had. And I got to a point, Mike, where my business was really not that relied on the brand name, or I didn't think it was, and I still don't think it was. I had some doubt though a little bit when I first launched into my independent. So I was there 18 years, and I just felt like I'd rather give those commission dollars back to my agents, which is what they were paying in on their commission structure, and I just didn't feel like giving up the money on my commission structures. So we went independent about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's been a really great thing. And I'll just add to this in the doubt side, because I did have some doubt that even though I knew I was listing and selling a lot of homes each and every year, I didn't know how much of those sellers chose me because I had the RE/MAX name.
Yeah.
And what's really fun was the very first week I became an independent with my own name. That week, my group and I listed 27 homes in the very first week with Bernie Gallerani Real Estate. So that then convinced me really quick that the RE/MAX name really had nothing to do with the level of success of the business that we were doing.
Good for you. That is great. You've chosen a path which is a little bit unusual. We've talked about it I have the good fortune of coaching Bernie every week, so we have a lot of great discussions. But you've chosen a path, for example, different than your good friend Josh Barker. Josh still lists properties for sale and lists a lot of properties for sale. And then his team, like yours, does a lot of business. You've chosen to be a team leader in a truer sense, where you're spending your time managing, recruiting, training, retaining people, bringing their production up, etc. What made you make that decision? Because most team leaders are personal production and then team production.
Yeah. I think it's just, I don't think there's a wrong or right answer for anybody that's looking at that. My viewpoint of it was I just felt very passionate that I wanted to spend my time building something that could have a lot of longevity for my future. And I felt like if I was the rainmaker only within my company and I ever decided to pull away at some point, that was going to hurt my business. So I just chose to roll my sleeves up. And it was sort of by accident, Mike, as I was producing at a high level and building the team at the same time. And the income from my team was outpacing my income, meaning my net profits off my team were outpacing my personal net profits. And I thought to myself, what could happen if I actually rolled my sleeves up? And with your help, you actually encouraged me through the years to consider that as my option, which was really surprising, Mike, because you've never really been a big fan of agents building teams, and I understand why, as I've been a team owner now for some time. But I rolled my sleeves up, and thank goodness I did, because what I did with that time, I then, through your help and encouragement, the first thing you told me to do once I left production was go open a title company. And so that took me the first year of going through all of that. And that was a fantastic decision that I made. And then after that, you encouraged me to open a mortgage company. So then I went through that process, opened a mortgage company. And what was fun is between those two ancillary businesses, those two businesses that I spent time not in production, now working to try to develop those systems, it actually replaced the income that I was earning while I was selling. So really, I like we'll use Josh. who really isn't entitled and is just now partially getting into mortgage. What I did was I replaced that income where Josh stays in production. I just replaced that with ancillary businesses. And so it made up the loss. And then it allowed me to spend all that time just focusing on how to become a better team owner.
Good for you. And I've tried to convince, as you know, the great agents that we coach and work with, like yourself. I try to convince them that their their survival will be the ancillary businesses, because when the market is going up, you make substantial income. When the market is flat, you still have those two income sources. So it's a
Yeah.
big deal. So
Yeah.
I was in this discussion last week with a fellow, and I said, I believe that real estate is a business of fads, FADS. You know, what is the latest and greatest? And I'm wondering, in most cases, fads come and go. They might last 2 years, they might last 4 years, they might last five, they might last 10 minutes. But this is a business of fads. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that I've never thought about it till you just mentioned this about how different it is as a team owner in fads versus how it is as an individual agent in fads.
Yes,
Because what you've taught us is how we can individually stay focused on the things you've taught us, and that sales process, that sales system that you teach us, that really never changes, and that
that's right.
produces high level of production for anybody who enters it at that level. Well, when you're a team owner, everybody then you're listening to everybody, right? Meaning your team, your agents, and the people in your organization, and what's the new, latest, and greatest, as you always say, shiny object.
Yes,
And I think as a broker team owner, you have to invest your time a little bit at looking at the shiny object, to keeping your eye on the production, because that's what your team wants to see at some level, or
that's
they'll
right.
leave you. So you have to have some creativeness to what you're bringing in. And I'll give you an example of what that means. And there's not any way to get out of this now because we're so thick and deep in it as the world turns. And that is AI. And
Yeah.
right, AI is kind of a shiny object that everyone's trying to get involved in, and I think it's a pretty significant one. So as a company owner, I'm venturing into that AI within my brokerage, because if I don't, I'm going to get left behind. So that's one of those shiny objects that I think you have to kind of jump on a little bit. But the challenge with it, Mike, and this is the reality of the truth, there's very few, and I've tried them all. I've invested in them. I'm one that takes a risk in some of the shiny things that come through my email, and people want to talk to me all the time about different things. And that is, most of them do not work. And so I would say maybe one out of every 30 or 40 things that I try actually produces some sort of an ROI that makes sense. Most of the people who call us and try to sell us into things, we try a lot of things, but we fail on most of the things we enter into. We just had one recently that we were into last year. Um, and the sales pitch always sounds really great, Mike, right? These are sales guys too, right? The people
Yeah.
on the other end. And so they're telling you all the great things that they think that they'll do. And, after about 8 months, we lost nothing but, we probably lost 70, $80,000 just in this process where you have to pull the plug on it. And that's a normal thing where you have to try
Yeah.
something, see if it works, because some things you try do work. But if you're a team owner, most things don't work, but you try them anyway just to see if it can get some altitude on them. But there's a lot of shiny objects, and you have to be very careful. The one thing I know that has always been consistent for us, Mike, is your sales system. Getting on the phone, talking to people, and being the professional agent you've always taught us to be. All the rest of it is a bunch of noise, but most agents want to hear the noise.
Well, they want to do anything but communicate with buyers and sellers, and they would like to see the shiny object complete the process before they've even started it. So, Sabrina, who you know, my wife and president of the company, um, did something last week which brought a big smile to both of our faces. She went on to and said to AI, um, give me a comparison of Mike Ferry to Tom Ferry. And AI was very complimentary about both parties. And then she said, tell me what you think of Serena Ferry. And AI started by saying, Serena Ferry is Tom Ferry's daughter. Now, where that came from, we don't know.
Well, no one said AI was perfect by any means.
Well,
Yeah.
that's going to be my next point. You have to be very careful on all the shiny objects because they sound better than they generally are. And your example, which I appreciate you giving, is a shining example of what looks good, sounds good, may not be good. Um,
Yeah, well, I
Andrew,
think you encouraged me a lot for a lot of years. I mean, I remember I tell people stories too where you'd go, "Don't you go hire another agent? I'm going to come down there and slap you over the head." I mean, you and I've been doing this for about 11 years, one on one with each other. So thank you for your time on that. But I'm hard headed, and I think that being a team owner is in my wheelhouse. However, it's really I'm always looking for punishment for some reason. I can't. I think it was probably my mom dropped me on my head or something when I was little. But I just like difficult things. It's weird. Like if it's difficult, I'm going to jump into the middle of it. I'm not really looking for easy. So you said not to do it, and like any kid, a teenage kid maybe that listens to their parents and says, "I'm going to do it anyway." This is what I did with you. But what I would say to anybody who would be considering a team, it is so different. And anybody who tries it, I always say the same thing. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever did. Selling real estate as a Mike Ferry agent is a lot easier than being a team owner. The responsibility, the coaching, the training, and all of the issues that come with it. So I don't encourage anybody to just do it, but I do want to encourage somebody, if they're feeling that calling and they're willing to take a pay cut,
yes.
they're willing to take a pay cut. They're willing to work a lot more hours, and they're
Yep.
willing to have some sleepless nights. Then be at it. Go for it. But it's certainly different.
We received an email, it was last summer, and it was from a broker. And he said, I want to share with you what one of my new agents did at our sales meeting last week. Now, the guy had been licensed for 1 week. He came into the office. He stood up at the sales meeting, and the broker said, this is John Doe. He's a new agent. John, tell him what you want to do. And he said, well, first thing I'm going to do is hire 2 assistants and 2 buyer's agents. And the broker said, first thing I'm going to do is tell you that you're not working here.
Good for him.
Because, it sounds so good, like most magic formulas do. But AI has a lot of authenticity and a lot of good information. But you can't let a computer generated voice overrun your voice. You can't let a computer operated voice become your voice of reason.
Can I ask you a question, Mike?
Please.
We've had this team idea in expansion for a few years, let's just say 3-4 years. And I know it was really picking up ground, but for some reason from my seat, it seems like it has slowed a bit. The idea of everybody wanting to start a team. Have you experienced that in any conversations, or do you feel it's still spreading as fast as it was?
I've been saying for about 6 months, it's a fad. It's just a usable fad. But if you don't use it right, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Because what it does, it takes away the personal communication between prospect and agent. And that never works. If I didn't spend time talking to people like you and Josh, I would be lost. Because the truth is, and I say this respectfully, you guys are always teaching me more than I'm ever going to teach you. And for that, I'm forever thankful. But at the same time, if you take fads and you consistently work them, you're going to have a challenge in terms of productivity, profitability, and longevity. So I don't think that the whole idea of this type of communication is bad. I just don't think it ever leads to high level productivity. Communication is always going to be the name of the game.
Yeah, and personal communication is the key. There's nothing like a face-to-face relationship
That's right.
over anything else. And I just think that most people venture into somebody who got into team building a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, flew out to Nashville and hung out with me and sat in my office. And I said, let me tell you, if you want to do it, that's perfectly fine, but it will be the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. Well, after about 3 years, that person would call me pretty regularly, still does to this day. But I remember her telling me, she goes, you know what, you said this to me 3 years ago, and I couldn't fathom how hard running a team would be. And
Yeah.
this was this is a 200 a year single producer that decided to go into team ownership. And I just want to tell everybody that, hey, it can be great, but for the most part, it is going to be a lot more work in the end.
So what is the biggest challenge you have? Because you're recruiting, you're retaining, you're training, you're holding accountable, you're coaching, you're obviously having to make the big decision to pull the plug on some. What is the biggest challenge you have as you started building the team?
I will say by far, not even in the same race. This is the front runner, the leader, by a lot. Is I absolutely underestimated working with realtors, how unproductive they really want to be, how really unproductive they are, that they don't really care that much about growth. And I would say that for anybody, they want growth, but they're not willing to change their behavior for growth.
Yes.
And so that's frustrating from a D personality who I was selling 150 houses a year. I was making a lot of money. And I really believed, Mike, and I truly believe this. It's been somewhat recent that I've changed my mind on all of this. And I used to hear you always say, you cannot uplift the downtrodden. You cannot motivate the unmotivated. And I almost killed myself trying to do that. And I remember somewhat recently over the last probably 18 months, reflecting back on the emotional side of what I was dealing with. And I thought, it's not fair for me. I'm looking for someone who caused the crime, meaning the emotional letdown that I had. And what I realized was I was my own villain. I was stabbing myself. I was robbing myself, my joy, because of my level of expectation. And no matter how hard I tried, and no matter how much I held people accountable, I really couldn't find anybody that wanted to do it at a level that I thought was fairly acceptable.
Yes.
So to answer your question, the hardest thing is dealing with the people, because most of them don't really want to be great at their job. They're just here to survive. And for somebody who wants to be great at their job, that's tough to work with every day. It's people who just don't care.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to the commission checks from 5 and 10 years ago were dramatically smaller. And if you were going to live a decent life, you had to produce a volume that was respectful. But post-COVID, the prices skyrocketed. Demand was beyond belief. The commission checks went through the roof. And, where you used to have to do 12 to 15 deals to make a living, now you were doing 5 or 6 and making the same money. So it's the constant challenge.
Mike Ferry Events, where top producing agents get sharper. The original real estate coaching. Get registered today and invest in yourself.
I was a guest speaker on a mastermind last Friday actually, and they asked me a similar question that you just asked me. And I said to them, as hard as this sounds, and I hate saying what I'm about to tell you, Mike, because I know people are going to watch this, but you have to lower your expectations in people, because if you have high expectations in people, you're going to be let down pretty much most of the time. And so when you run a team, and you've always said, have high standards within your team. And what I was finding and I had those high standards, but what I would find though is the minute I got them productive enough and worked with them long enough, my standards would continue to increase as your standards on me increase, right? You look at me and go, okay, now you're in this stage. We're going to push you harder. We're going to push you harder. It got to the point where I started pushing them too hard. And then now they're working for another broker, And so I had to kind of just say, okay, well, they went from level 1 to level 2, but they certainly don't want to go to level 3. They actually want to just stay at level 2 because they don't need $1 million or $2 million a year to live their life. They're okay with 150 to 200,000. And when our mindset as leaders push and accountability, they're like, okay, I'm tapping out. I'm going over here where I don't have to be held accountable. And that's the biggest disappointment is you train people. Mike, you've seen this in your world where you bring them in, you sign up in a coaching contract, they listen to you, they make some money, and then they're going coaching with somebody else because they want to hear something new, right? I mean, how does that make you feel?
They want an easier path.
Yes.
Well, the last 20 years, I just go like this. Okay. Or I go like this, but the first 30 years, it was devastating because I spent so much time trying to help people that didn't want to help themselves. And then one day I woke up and said, let's reduce the pot in terms of size of people you work with. We don't need 40,000 customers in running a training company. We need 4,000 to 5,000 that are continually looking to improve. So that was a big factor. So tell the audience the difference between building a team and building a normal real estate office.
Well, I think the first thing would be what I first alluded to was that you have to change your approach to how you look at the people you work with.
Yes.
When I was a real estate agent, and I think a lot of people listening who are individual agents will appreciate this. And what's made all of the people that you coach probably really great at being great salespeople is that once you figure out what goes on inside of you, you can slay you. You can create a great life for you and your family because you're only depending on you. You're depending on your controllable habits, right? We always talk about we control the controllables, getting up in the morning, what kind of attitude you have, what time you show up to work, your scripts, your dialogues, your practices, your ability to control you and your effort. That is the first thing that we all have to slay is how do we control us and build a life for ourselves that is it fits into the goals and the dreams that I think that we envision. But what happens when you build a team, you want those same things for those other people because you've slayed that dragon. And so the hardest part is realizing that you're dealing with mediocre thinkers. That's number one. Number two, I would say to building a team and the challenge is the cost of getting it off the ground, managing the staff, and investing in the leads. Last year we were spending about $2 million in lead distribution, and then you're pounding on those agents to convert, to call, to practice scripts and dialogues, and it's exhausting. It really is, and
that's right.
It's easy. That's what I'm trying to say. It's easier to be a salesperson because you're just controlling you.
Yeah.
But now you're trying to control how they do things. I'm trying to control somebody else, and you can't change somebody else's thinking. Right? And you're investing in them and you're expecting them to do the job and they do it on a scale of 1 to 10. They're doing it at a 3 and you're like, listen, profit is at a 6. I got to get you at a 5 or a 6 or I can't make money on you. And so that's the hardest part is investing in people who you hope really want to be better, but 95% of them don't even care to improve their skills. They just want the easy layup, the easy check, and they don't care how much money we lose or how much money we invest. They only care about them. So I would just say this in closing on this part is I think you have to develop a system that works for both parties. And you have to have some give and take in who they are. You have to work on the measurables that matter the most to you as a team owner. And you have to give up on some things. And the giving up on it was, and I hate saying this because it's not my personality. I hate it because I always want to improve every day. Just I always look myself in the mirror and go, if it's going to happen, it's going to be completely up to me. I can't depend on really anybody else but me. In the world of team ownership, you're depending on them.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
You're depending on, and that is very difficult. So the part you have to give up is the connection to believing they're going to grow at a high level. And the part you have to adapt is saying, I don't care how you live your life live it any way you want. But if I give you this lead, I'm going to hold you accountable to converting that. And I'm going to grade you on a percentage. And that's it. If you want to sell 15 homes, go ahead. If you want to sell 150, I'm going to support you. Live your life, show up to work, don't show up to work. You do you. But if I'm investing in you, I am going to hold you accountable to that lead distribution percentage count.
Good for you. So a big part of it, of a team, is you can control your expense of commissions paid because you're spending the money to buy the leads to give them a better life, which they many times can't accept.
It's crazy. I've got somebody in my company and she's been on your stage before, who makes 7 figures as an agent on my team with my split. No one gets any different splits. Everyone has the same splits in my group. But I have one that makes over $1 million for herself at 30 years old, and I got other ones that can't even break $100,000 because they don't want to do anything, even though they see this individual. I've got $500,000 earners. I got $750,000 earners. I got $300,000 or $400,000 earners. But it doesn't matter if they see it, they touch it, they feel it, they taste it. It doesn't matter. If they don't have it inside of them, they just don't have it inside of them. And
that's right.
We try to kill ourselves, Mike, because I know you do this. We try to kill ourselves because we see more in them than they see in them.
That's right.
But I'm not willing to keep stabbing myself to death over their lack of. I'm killing myself over here, Mike.
Good.
It's like,
yeah.
But with that being said, you asked me about team ownership. I'm like, some people are just made for team ownership, and that's me, regardless of how difficult it is. I don't care. I'm going to just keep moving because the success in my business isn't about them. The success in my business is how I deal with them.
Yes.
And I'm learning that skill. That's all I'm doing. And so if I keep working on it for the next 10, 15 years, I'm probably going to figure some things out. So I'm just very determined to make it all work.
Well, I figure we only have another 15, 20 years together before one of us decides to stop. I'm turning 81 in a few days, so I would assume that my 20 years will come back faster at me than yours. But I want to say to you, Bernie, first of all, as a friend, it's really been a treat. Getting to know you and Wendy and the family and doing things together. I don't think I'll ever forget our trip to Napa, California, to spend a couple of days with Bocelli. That was, folks, we flew up on a private jet. We stayed in beautiful suites at a resort for a couple of days. Bocelli came out on the stage twice and sang. There were 500 people for dinner, which was a treat in itself. And then we, through primary exhaustion, got on the plane and flew home. But of course, we landed in Las Vegas, dropped us off, and then you still had another 4-hour flight to go. But
I always say, Mike, that was such a surreal living your life for a few days, flying in your plane, staying in this beautiful resort, flying back on the jet, having your driver take me to the Southwest drop-off zone. And Wendy looked at me and went, wow, now this is surreal. Mike's life, Bernie's life. So and thank you for that experience, Mike. And thank you for 22 years of working with you. I mean,
I
was broke and destitute when I started with you, and my life is forever, and my family's life and my kids' life, and probably my grandchildren for that matter, will always be filled with amazing joy and wealth because of what you've allowed and things that you've taught us just to be a better agent and a better person. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And it's amazing. Our timing is perfect. We're at 29 minutes. I told my staff it would be a 30-minute interview. So I want to say if I was there with you, I would shake your hand, give you a big hug. And neither one of us are huggers, but this has been very inspirational. And if the person that is watching is not learning and enjoying from Bernie Gallerani, it's their own fault. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mike.
it.
You're the best. Appreciate you.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Ready to grow listings, sales, and income? Click the link below to learn how Mike Ferry Coaching helps agents win in any market.